Why do I say start? Because actually, you won't know how your users will use it until they start using it.
Config and cruise for Phill? I'm fine.
So I did want to ask you, I see your name all the time online, like all the time, specifically in the Atlassian community. And so I was just kind of curious if you can just talk to me about, like, how do you even find the time to answer all these questions? What's that look like?
It's part of my job role, which makes it a little bit easier, is thought leadership and community engagement with Adaptavist. So, but I would actually say what drives me, as opposed to what allows me,
What drives you?
is a very different thing, which is 14, maybe 15 years ago, I first came across the Atlassian toolset. And to say it revolutionised my way of working, probably a little bit of overkill for back then,
Okay.
but certainly over the years, I found whenever I've had a challenge, a problem, a requirement, I've generally been able to solve it with the Atlassian toolset. And I've been able to help others solve their problems. So in a sense, it's me giving back to the community for what has enabled me for the last 10 to 15 years to have a really successful career. And without the Atlassian toolset, the Atlassian community, I wouldn't be where I am today. So it's giving back and recognising that, I'm in the twilight of my employment years. I've only got a few more years to go before I go off and retire and then just do what I want. So I'm taking the opportunity to go, you know what? I'm not competing for anybody's job. I'm not competing for anything. I'm actually here to help other people just be better. And I have a mantra, which is always leave the world better than you found it.
I appreciate what you do as much as anybody else, but it's scary. It's scary to go put yourself out there and just answer questions because you could be wrong. And so what's your thought process there? Like, how did you overcome that challenge?
I encourage people to tell me I'm wrong, is the first thing.
The more wrong, the better?
To a certain extent, yeah. If you have a different viewpoint, a different opinion, it's absolutely valid. It does not mean that I'm right, you're wrong. In fact, I love people to open up debate, discussion, and then we can see why we differ, understand what the differences are. Most of the time, when you have a difference, it's because you're coming from a completely different context and a different understanding. And what I see, what you see, because of our context, what we've grown up with, what we've lived in, where we are, what we're doing, we view our world through our context. And everybody's context is different. And it's that difference of context that leads to differences of opinion. And when you have a difference of opinion, you learn to understand each other and you understand more about where somebody's coming from. You then appreciate that the world has more similarities than differences.
Right. Yeah, because that's been one of the biggest challenges that I've had is I put 600 YouTube plus videos out there, right?
Yeah.
And it's always that I don't even read my comment section. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if I'm wrong. I know that the way I teach, it's because it's worked for me. But in your method, right, in the forum within the Atlassian community, it's kind of the whole thing is the comment section.
Yeah, and it's a dialogue. And it's about having that dialogue that you're continuously engaging with.
And I like what you're saying there, though, because I've never seen the Atlassian community, specifically that website, as a dialogue. I've seen it as a place, kind of like a Stack Overflow, a place to go find answers.
Yeah, I'd say, no, it's about... the way I look at it is I have a group of how many thousand peers distributed around the world who will have their viewpoints, their opinions, their understanding. And so, yes, on one hand, I'm sharing my viewpoint, my opinion, but it is my viewpoint and my opinion that I'm sharing. I want to hear as much as everybody else what they do.
No, that is crazy. And any advice for new folks then? Because like I said, it's easy for us. I think we've been doing it for so long, but when you're new, I start seeing those rising stars in the Atlassian community, and there's folks that are just generally out there trying to make the place a community better. But, you know, online bullying is a thing, and again, that imposter syndrome is a thing. But any tips for overcoming that challenge or imposter syndrome?
Absolutely.
Especially as a new person.
I would say be humble is the main bit of advice there. Be humble. Just because you have a view doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong. Be prepared to hear people tell you that they have a different view, and don't criticise them for having a different view. Understand where they're coming from and be humble, because when you do get it wrong, and I've got stuff wrong, be humble.
But it's okay to have it wrong when it's a dialogue. Because it's a negotiation.
Exactly. Accept that you're wrong. Acknowledge that you're wrong. Acknowledge what have you found out that has made you realise that you were wrong, and move on. It's not a problem. Our whole life is about learning new things. When you're born, you can't walk, you can't talk.
You learn.
You learn.
I heard you have some humanitarian efforts that you do.
I do quite a lot of humanitarian stuff.
What's your most proud favorite one?
Oh,
all of them?
Yeah, as I said earlier, it's the mantra of leave the world a better place than you found it. So I'd say things like humanitarian aid trips from the UK to Ukraine is one of the things which, being able to make that difference, being able to support colleagues and communities by delivering much needed supplies to the border between Poland and Ukraine. That's probably the most impactful thing that I do. Are you aware of Pledge 1%? So Atlassian, Adaptavist, Appfire, and a number of other key big players, both in the Atlassian ecosystem and beyond, there's a global philanthropy movement called Pledge 1%. And Pledge 1% is donating 1% of profit, times, product, etc. to doing good. And the great thing that's there, Simon and Scott, right at the outset said, if we plan to give 1% away and we do it right from the start, we will never miss it. And that's what they've done.
That's great.
So Pledge 1% is an amazing initiative. And so Atlassian Foundation is part of the mechanism by which that 1% of profits and 1% of time gets mobilised for the benefit of the world.
I don't think Atlassian does a good enough job promoting what they do.
Well, that's part of what we're going to be trying to change on the expo floor over the next 2 days.
Looking forward to it. Now, I think we have a few minutes left. Why don't you talk to me about the quickest or most efficient way of setting up a JSM portal?
Start. Simple as that.
I struggle with these because...
Okay. Why do I say start? Because actually, you won't know how your users will use it until they start using it. You can have all of the ideas in the world of, they're going to want to do this, they're going to want to do that, we're going to need this sort of query. Start off with just saying, what do you need support on? Keep it simple, and then refine it out. Take the agile principles of iterate out. What's your MVP? Your MVP is a portal which has one question. What do you need help on? Tell me what you need help on. Then as you start to see patterns of lots of people asking for this or for that, you can then say, well, how can we make that particular question quicker, easier, more efficient, more effective? What can we write in terms of a knowledge article? Too often I see organisations get stuck in what I call analysis paralysis.
Right, yeah.
Where they don't do anything because they fear they might not do the right thing. But what is failure? And this is the thing where you have to decide what is an acceptable level of failure. Is it a failure where you get, I'll show my age here, the old blue screen of death on your Windows PC? That is a most definite failure that really you're going, yeah, that's failed. We know it's failed. It's really obvious it's failed. That sort of experience is not good. But is it a failure when you get a question which is literally just you're being asked the same thing twice, or some information that that the system should already know is being asked of you as the end user? Yeah?
Right.
Is that a failure? I would say it's a poor user experience, but I wouldn't necessarily class it as a failure. However, it could be seen as a user improvement when you then say, actually, we already know that information, so why do we need to bother asking? So I think you have to think about failure as being not necessarily a huge blue screen of death type failure where you've not been able to complete the activity,
Right, but learning opportunity.
but
instead.
a learning opportunity to improve.
Right, and I don't understand. I think right, when I jump into Jira or I jump into these, Atlassian pushes out so many new tools. Right, it's easy to get like analysis paralysis of like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to click, I don't know where to go, I don't know what's going on, and it's easy to just not do anything. Like procrastination with that fear and overwhelmingness, I think is a lot easier than it is to just take a chance and just try, right? Like,
Yeah.
I had a teacher in college. He told us, I took a computer repair class, and it was one of the easiest, dumbest classes I ever took in my entire career, or as a college student. But what the professor taught us was like, hey, the computer's already broken, so you can't break it anymore, so you might as well experiment. Yeah. And so that always taught me to just kind of take a leap of faith and just like, if I break it, oh, well, I broke it. But if I don't, then at least I learned something. And even if I did break it, then I got to figure out how to fix it. And then I learned a whole lot more than if I hadn't broken it at all.
Yep. But I think you're right. There is that scariness of, am I going to do something which is going to impact the end user in a negative way?
Right. And I think that, again, over time it builds up, right? Like, I think that the risk becomes less the bigger the team gets. But there's still got to be a safety, right? There's still got to be like the way to maybe do A/B testing or experiment with the beta group or something, because you can't, having that fear that you're going to upset the end user or something of that caliber, like it'll just cause you to become complacent, and you will get, somebody else will take the risk.
Yep.
And come put you out.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is you have to remember that testing is great, but you can't test with everybody.
Right.
So you've got to understand that who are you testing with, and are they truly representative of the end users that you're expecting? It's very easy to test with a group that matches and mirrors your own expectations. So if you go back to the restaurant booking example, I choose a group of baby boomers like me, and we all test together. We're all going to say, oh, mobile phone call, that's the only way to go. If I don't include millennials, Gen X, Gen Z in that testing, and that's a very simplistic view of testing, then I'm not going to have a representative test, so that then when I launch it with everybody, what are they going to say? They're going to say, this doesn't work for us.
Correct. Well, last question here, because we're definitely coming up to your destination. Where do you see this Jira family sit in all of this? Like all the tools out there and everything else that the users have available to them?
We're never going to need to stop tracking things. And at the heart of Jira, that is what it is. It's a tracking of a thing. What you call that thing really doesn't matter. You can call it an issue, you can call it a ticket, you can call it an incident, a problem, a service request, a problem, whatever it is. You have a start and an end. And it may be that you go around some loops several times, but at the end of the day, you're tracking things. And as life becomes more and more complex and we have more things to track, that's the place for teams and Jira working to support any team in any place. Jira is the tool to help you track whatever your thing is.
Thank you, Phil, for being with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy
You're at
the
your
journey.
destination. Enjoy Teams 24. And hopefully I see you on the expo floor.
I hope to see you there. Thank you.
Special thanks to Salto for putting this entire initiative together. Salto is a complete DevOps platform for configuration management for Jira, JSM, and Confluence. It allows teams to automatically copy configurations between sites, whether you're doing sandbox to production or a cloud production to another cloud production. It does it really, really well, and most importantly, very, very easily.